Good evening, members, and good evening, officers, and good evening to members of the public who may be watching us on YouTube. Welcome to this evening's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Before we start, I have a small statement to make with regards to this meeting. The Local Authorities and Police and Crimes Panel Coronavirus Flexibility of Local Authority and Police and Crime Panel Meetings, England and Wales Regulations 2020 came into force on Saturday the 4th of April 2020 to enable councils to hold remote committee meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic period. This was to ensure local authorities could conduct business during this current public health emergency. This meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is being held remotely under these regulations via the Zoom application and is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. So again, welcome everybody. Item 1, do we have any apologies?
Chairman, the whole committee is here, plus 2 other members, Graham McAndrew and Peter Ruffles.
No problem. Do you want to do a quick roll call, Peter, so as that members of the public know who we are and that we know who we are?
Okay, yep. Councillor Wiley, Chairman.
I'm here.
Sophie Bell.
Present.
Mary Brady.
Present.
Ruth Buckmaster.
Present.
Alexander Curtis.
Present.
Ian Devonshire.
Present.
Holly Drake.
Present.
James Frecknell.
Present.
Mandy Goldspink, Vice Chairman.
Present.
Diane Hollybon.
Present.
Jonathan Kay.
Yes, present.
David Snowden.
Here.
Murray Stevenson. I can see her on the screen. Yeah. And then Norma Simons.
Here.
Okay, that's the committee. We've also got Councillor Peter Ruffles observing. And Graham McAndrew, executive member. And we've also got Tyrone Sudders to present a report, Lorraine Blackburn, myself, and Katie Mogan.
Very much. Item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of February. Are members all happy that that is a true and accurate record? Yeah, I'm guessing. Can I just say to members, because of there are so many of you, if we are voting, if we can use the blue hand, just to say that we agree, and that makes it a lot easier for officers. So if we can show the blue hands to say that we're happy with
the proposal first of all, please.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Can we have a proposal that for the minutes? James Frecknell, seconded by Diane Hollybon.
Okay.
Those in favour, please show blue hands.
I think that's almost everyone. Can't see Mary Brown's hand, but everyone else is there.
Certainly looks right. So thank you very much, members. Item 3, chairman's announcements. One of them I've just made, which is if we are voting, if we can use the blue hands, because the new Zoom, the tick and the cross disappear very quickly, so it's easier for officers if we can use the blue hands. And I'm also proposing, because today is 1 year since the first national lockdown and it is the day of reflection, so I'm proposing that at 5 minutes to 8 we take a 10-minute break so that members may go to the door, light a candle, shine a torch if they wish to. The meeting will still be live streamed, so if we can ask that all members then switch their microphones off, and as I say, there will be 10 minutes. So if someone is speaking at 5 and I interrupt you, I'm not being rude, it's just to give members time to actually get their candle or find their torch. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any? I can't see any, no. In which case, if we move to item 5, welcome to Graham McAndrew, the Executive Member for Environmental Sustainability, who is going to trot us through his portfolio, what he's been up to, and then we'll be able to ask him some questions and he'll do the answering. I can't actually see him. Is he? Oh, there you are, Graham. Sorry, there's so many on the screen, it's difficult to see you. So welcome, Graham.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Have you got the presentation on the screen, Chairman?
I can certainly see it. So
Right.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
everyone seems to be okay. Yes.
Good. Good. We'll just right. Oops. This evening, I'm going to touch upon the following items on the agenda: waste, grounds maintenance, parking, climate change, air quality, and community transport. So first of all, waste, recycling and street cleansing. In the top left-hand chart, you'll actually see the recycling rates for 1920, 2021. The top line, the blue line, is 1920 and the green one, 2021. And you'll notice that there's been a decline in recycling. And this is mainly due to the more residual waste being collected than the green waste. Now, underneath the street roads, etc., you can see in Q1 there was only 142, Q2 1,220 inspections. But in Q3 we went up to 1,589. The target per month is 500 inspections. So in Q3 for the quarter, we've actually achieved the number of inspections required on the road. But as you can see in the C and D roads, the inspections haven't been as good as what they could have been. On the chart on the right-hand side of your screen is the actual missed collections of bins. And whilst it's sort of taken a dip and gone back up, we have still maintained above 99% collection rate, which is really good. Now, on the grounds maintenance, the 2020, the yellow is the complaints for this year compared to the other years. And you can see that it's sort of up and down. And the complaints that we've had vary from trees overhanging into gardens, leaves falling into gardens, obviously because there's more residents at home. Also, bins overflowing and increased litter to a higher level of outdoor activity and usage of our open spaces. On the grass cutting, minimal complaints and sustainability front, we've been working with Countryside Management Service, CMS and County Council through our Parks, Hearts, Green Space Management Forum to develop a project to audit all council-owned land across the county to identify opportunities to improve biodiversity. This will include most areas that might be able to be managed as meadowland, better habitats for wildflowers, and should help to identify opportunities for further tree planting. The project may be funded centrally by the county or individually by the districts and will most likely be delivered by Countryside Management Services. We are hopeful that this project will begin this year. On the parking front, you can see there was a big dip down here on the left-hand side, April and May. That's when we stopped charging for the car parks. And the occupancy rate has sort of gone up in February 21, but it's still well below the actual level it should have been at. Now, in the top right-hand side, East Harts patrol times. This is the parking wardens, the executive officers, they come in and checks the vehicles, whether they're parked legally, not legally. They, during this period of time in the last year, didn't concentrate on the car parks, but more on safety on our highways. And they actually had 70% on-street target for the CEOs, which is their actual level. So the contractor achieved 100%. But may I say that the CEOs performed very well, but they'd been the victim of abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, being spat on and being kicked. and it's really not sort of good what the general public are doing. And they just really go out and do a day's work. Yeah. Moving on to sustainability, I'll let you sort of read through these points here. There's quite a lot going on. We've introduced tools for projects, including carbon footprint as part of assessment and procurement process. So any goods that we procure, the suppliers have got to go through a substantive procurement process. Staff, we've carried out a sustainability survey, replaced lighting in wallfields with LED bulbs, and switched the council's electricity to renewable tariff. But I'll leave that there for a minute so you can just sort of have a quick look through. Okay. So sustainability, using our regulatory powers to promote actions by others. As you can see, we've adopted the Sustainability Supplementary Planning document, and we've also surveyed developers about higher energy efficiency and passive house development. We actually see it's their responsibility to come forward and develop above and beyond the minimum requirement for the developments. How we influence and encourage others to do things. We've completed 2 subway improvements in Hertford, bicycle racks in market towns, and we're running the East Herts Environmental and Climate Forum. And just on that point, we've just completed 3 growth transport plan presentations by Trevor Brennan, 1 to councillors and 2 to the general public. We've just had a rural roundtable, met with the rural community, the NFU, Arable and Soils Advisor, farm owners and managers representing 10,000 hectares of land. And we've also got the other webinars scheduled in during the course of the year on energy efficiency, waste recycling, renewables, sustainable goods, and the green economy. On the website, this is the environmental sustainability front page of the website when you go in there, and you can get the action plan there. Now, this one here, very important. It's all about our journey to achieving 2030, how we're actually doing. Now, you can see that we've got 2,800 CO2 figure there, and we're actually on target at this time and moment. And you may wonder how we're going to get from where we are to 2030. And it's all on the website in the environmental sustainability pages under the action plan. So you can actually see what the council's doing, at what stage, and how long it's going to take to be done. Working with others in Hertfordshire Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership. This was a new group that was started just over a year ago. It consists of all 10 district borough councils in the county of Hertfordshire, Hertfordshire County Council, and also the LEP. I'm the chair of the HCCSP. Linda Hazy, leader, is the Arts Leaders Group sponsor for HCCSP. Jonathan Gill, head of housing, he's deputy chair of the officers, HSOG Group, and David Thorogood, he heads up the transport subgroup. So we're actually influencing what goes on within the county of Hertfordshire, and David Thorogood sits on the 4 subgroups, which is biodiversity, energy, transport. Right, draft sustainabilities for 21-22. I'll let you guys read that. We're going to train officers and members. Officers are already being trained and talked to through the monthly meetings. Grange Paddocks Leather Centre, Regulatory Powers, Sustainability SPD, Influence and Encourage, We're on a food minimisation campaign, which we're actually doing, working with partners to install more e-vehicle chargers across the district. I'll just leave that there for a second. Air quality update. So between 2015-19, there was a 4.1 increase in traffic in Hertfordshire, and in 2015-20, there was a 4.9 decrease. Air quality, we're installing e-vehicle chargers, Hertford, Bishop Stortford. We're looking at the rural community taxi vehicle standards. We've introduced low emission policy, cycle racks in all the 5 towns, the sustainability supplementary planning document. But there's more to do. So we want to promote the council's e-car club to whoever we can to use it. Northgate's going to have 54 chargers. We're working with third parties to see if we can trial rapid chargers for taxis and switch the council's own vans. I believe we've got about 5 vans to e-vans over the next coming 2 years, and we've implement the supplementary planning document. And I'm sure you've all heard over the past couple of weeks that Hertfordshire County Council, working in conjunction with North and East Herts, have got funding, £1,472,000 over 4 years. It's demand responsive transport. The bid's been successful, and the following villages and towns on there will benefit. Community transport and the transport strategy. We hope to hold a transport conference in the district not too soon. And the community transport providers, we're actually looking at them becoming more self-sufficient. And I think through the COVID, over the past year, there's partnerships have been formed with various groups, and we need to understand how we can build on that and maximise on the community transport. And work with the HCCSP in a county-wide strategic action plan. And that's me, Chairman. Do you want me to leave the slides up, or?
No, I think you can take them down in case I need to look at any member who is waving at me. But thank you very much for that. We can whiz back to them if we need any. That's better. I can see now. If any members do have any questions, if they can raise their blue hands, I can see I've got one blue hand already. So David Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor McAndrew, thank you very much for your presentation. It was a very full presentation and covered a lot of ground. Could you maybe say a few more words on the demand responsive transport scheme for the Buntingford area? My understanding is this hasn't really been a quick process, has it? There's been a lot of hard work done by officers and others to actually get this off the ground. Could you maybe just say a bit more about what it's taken to get here, please?
Yeah, County Council have been working more with North Herts on actually getting this in South Cambridge. And the officers, County Council and North Herts, and indeed here at East Herts, have spent a long time putting packages together. And they got shortlisted down to 17 a few weeks back. I think there was about 130 something that applications went in. And we were successful. And not only were we successful, I think we received one of the higher grants that was available to carry this out. The officers at County are now really getting behind this, and they're going to try and have something in place for the autumn on the side of it. And I think that'll be quite a big challenge. It's something that everybody's wanted, and it's going to serve the rural communities, and that will be a boon, because the rural communities, not only within East Herts, North Herts, but the surrounding districts and boroughs are they just don't have that service with the buses, and this will be good for the workers, etc. So we'll have to wait and see how it evolves, and hopefully they'll be electric as well, some of them.
Yeah. May I ask a quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. And just one slightly niche question on how this works. So obviously, if you're in Buntingford, Little Haddam, or the Alvleys, anywhere like that, and you say you need to come to Bishop's Stortford for a hospital appointment, you can obviously arrange that, and you get picked up and dropped off. And obviously, but I suppose how to ask this: can people in Bishop's Stortford use it for getting out to the rural areas or not, or is it only for people who are in the sort of villages?
That's a very good question, because Bishop's Stortford is part of this, and Much Haddam, etc. So I don't see no reason why it can't actually do that. I don't think it's just one way sort of coming down and going into Bishop's Stortford. There will be flexibility for it to go from Bishop's Stortford, Much Haddam, or Albury, wherever, up to Stevenage or Buntingford, etc.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor McAndrew, for your time tonight and for your presentation. I think two hopefully very quick ones from me. One is a process question about the application for additional bins. I noticed that obviously we've had lots of overflowing bins, and it's been one of the complaints. Now, if this might be just education for me, but is there an option of members of the public actually requesting additional bins, and who would that go to? Because as opposed to having lots of overflowing bins, it might make more sense to have more bins in areas of high litter. And then the second one really is just in relation, a lot of what you just said is about our sustainable planning, supplementary planning document for our sustainable planning development. My question really is how many teeth does that actually have? Because if it's a lot of the carbon neutrality towards 2030 is going to depend on our development, and if it's the developers' responsibilities to go above and beyond, isn't that the wrong way around? Shouldn't it be our request for the developers to become more sustainable? Thank you.
That's right. Yeah. Firstly, on the bins, you've raised a very valid point. It's a very good question. When you say that there may not be enough bins, or the bins are overflowing, members of the public carry goods with them, yeah, and it could be crates of beer, it could be sandwiches, crisp packets, or whatever, but they can carry them to wherever they're going, but they're not always willing to take the wrappers back and take them home and recycle it or put it in the bin. So what's actually happened is, with the lockdown, there's more and more people out walking about, etc., and it's put pressure on the current bins. So one of the things that we're actually looking at, A, are the bins in the right place? B, are the bins fit for purpose, i.e. should they actually be bigger? Because the environment that we actually live in now, today, is different from what it was maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, so there's different things going on in the background. And one of the biggest areas that's been hit is the open spaces, the country parks. There's been so many people actually going to the parks that they just leave the litter strewn all over the parks. It's a sort of mentality, it's an education, it's a behaviour change that we actually see, but we are looking at bigger bins, and are they located in the right place? The other one was the sustainability planning document. Yeah. So the SPD requires developers to give full details of how they'll meet the sustainability requirements in the local plan. Yeah, in the local plan. These will be taken into account during consideration of the planning application. So in a couple of years' time, you're quite right, has it got teeth, has it not got teeth? But in a couple of years' time, when the district plan has been reviewed, the SPD will be reviewed with it, and they'll come together, and all the legislation will be in there. So it's really a good template. It's a working document. The developers can actually see what they've got to do at a sort of glance. But I always feel that the developers have got to go over and beyond the minimum legal requirement to build houses. Yeah, just that sort of.
It does, yeah. So just to confirm, then the plan is, as it stands at the moment, to join the Sustainable Planning SPD with the updated district plan when it's due for renewal.
They should be working in partnership moving forward. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Diane. You're on mute, Diane. That's better.
I've got it now. Sorry, some problem with doing it. Thank you, Chairman. Just a few observations. Electric cars, I'm sure more people would like to buy them, but they are far too expensive. And I think that's one of the things that is sort of holding back, I think, and having an effect on our environment. The other thing is air pollution. I believe, in fact, I know it's increasing dramatically across Bishop Stortford, and it's causing a lot of issues for many people, particularly those with lung conditions, and also the new build, new build houses. It's not working out as ethically, in my mind, as it should do. And now the aircraft are back with us, they appear to be not flying in the flight path, and they are encroaching ever more over the Bishop Stortford South part that's being currently developed. There's also an increase in car traffic. Obviously, we know COVID had a huge impact on that. And when you're doing your next publicity thing about litter, and which obviously everybody should own up and take their litter home, as you've already said, dog excrement is on the increase, and shall I say, things are posted on trees, which is totally disgusting. And where dog bins are, people appear not to want to use them. So again, when the next campaign is on litter, can we have a little bit about dog poo? They're not Christmas tree decorations, they're meant to go into the dog bins. Just a few observations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do agree with the dog litter. Yeah.
And the rest, I hope.
Yeah.
And the rest, Graham, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think Graham's noted that. Alex.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor McAndrew, for your presentation. It's very informative. I have a few questions on it. So firstly, actually following from what Councillor Holliburn quite rightly said about air quality, air pollution in our towns around East Herts, what consideration has been given to the planting of trees along key roads? I mean, some of this can be done by highways, but also by East Herts on land that we own, and also by us lobbying our town and parish councils that often can get stuff done very quickly because they don't have as many layers of middle management to approve things. What can we do to encourage sort of low maintenance and ideally minimal pollen trees, varieties to be planted? I'm thinking of conifers like pines, I'm thinking of oaks, I'm thinking of yew trees. What could be done there, because there's potentially some very easy wins there on the air pollution front. In terms of wildflowers, I'm very pleased to hear all of that, though we've been talking about wildflowers and planting more of them around ever since I became a councillor back in 2015 for the first time. So I'm wondering sort of why some of this is progressing very, very relatively slowly. And again, it's something that we can involve our town and parish councils on, and then use voluntary groups. I'm thinking, I mean, not in my own ward, obviously, you've got the parish council, but parish councils actually, but in our towns we have in bloom groups, for example, and there are other sort of groups doing litter picking in around Ware and Stanton Abbotts, for example. Can we use some of these voluntary groups to deliver some of this stuff? Because that's a great way of encouraging local people to play their part in improving the local environment. One more bit as well on the e-car club. How many users are there now of the e-car club, and how much capacity is there for it at present? Very, very keen to know, because that will give us an idea of how much impact this is having and how much more we can do to promote it, how much more we need to do rather. Finally, just my notes here, littering. I know that Councillor Frecknell quite rightly already raised this. I know I've been in correspondence as well with you, Councillor McAndrew, on the subject in my ward of Great Hanwell, and you've been very helpful with that in terms of giving me the guidance on where to go to get new bins in where they're currently overflowing. I'm wondering though, beyond that, following queries from my local parish council, Great Hanwell Parish Council in my ward, how we can encourage local businesses to provide fewer disposable cups, and thinking coffee shops especially, to customers. Because we've seen a lot more littering in lockdown, seeing people walking into town, getting cups of coffee, and then putting them in a bin. I think it's all well and good talking about behavioural change. I do think behavioural change is encouraging, it is important, but it's often very ambitious. So perhaps some small wins, such as replacing the some of the lower capacity bins with larger ones, should be aimed for instead. I think littering more widely is something perhaps to go on this committee's work programme over the coming years, perhaps in the form of a task and finish group. And that's obviously something for further down the agenda, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are in what I just said, and also some of your answers to the questions I've just posed. Thank you.
Lots of questions there for you, Graham.
If I miss anything, I'm sure you'll let me know. On trees, basically since 2011, between 2011 and 2020, East Herts had to fell 1,500 trees because they were not good or falling down, etc., etc. But during the same period, they actually planted in excess of 1,800 trees. So for the trees that was felled, there was more trees actually replacing the trees that's actually felled. Now, moving forward with the new developments, we are actively encouraging more habitat, hedgerows, trees, shrubs, bushes, etc. And I think you'll find that in most new developments, especially Harlow, Gilson, Garden Town, Bishop Stortford South, and various other locations. Wildflowers. Now, trees, wildflowers. Now, that's really a good point, because we're now Hertfordshire Climate Change Sustainability Partnership. One of the themes that we're doing and groups is on biodiversity. And we're looking, and over and above that, we've just had a rural webinar with farmers and the NFU, etc. And we're all keen to have meadows, plant more trees, the right type of trees, because it's not just a case of planting a tree and whatever, there's got to be the right type of tree in the right place, the right climate. We're looking at wildflowers, ponds, all this type of thing. And it's not just on council land, it's on council land, private land, etc. So there's lots of talks going on at this time and moment about that, yeah. Voluntary groups, you're quite right, there's more and more voluntary groups coming to the fore. And a lot of them want litter pickers. Now, I believe there's a grant that you can get up to £300 for health and wellbeing community coming together, that you can actually get litter pickers or kits, then they can go to groups. On the car club users, I couldn't give you a figure on that at this time and moment, but the staff are actively, East Herts staff are actively being encouraged to use the car club for the duty. We've offered it to various departments within Hertfordshire County Council. We've also been in talks with the police that they can actually use them, and we will be looking at entering into talks with the bid. Yeah. I believe next one was new bins. I think we've covered that we're actually looking at new bins, and can we put, when they require replacement, we put in larger bins. Coffee cups, my goodness gracious me, it doesn't matter where you go in the district or the county, every bin's got coffee cups, and it comes from the garages, coffee shops, etc., etc. Reason for that is there's more people out and about, there's more people walking, and they pop in, get a takeaway coffee, and they just put it in the bin. And it's not just a bin, it surrounds the bin and further areas. Behaviour change, I agree. That's a long drawn out process. We've got to understand what it is it needs doing, how we can educate people. We're looking at going into schools. It's got to be primary schools, because that's where you actually influence the younger people who will then grow up and actually make the change. Have I missed anything out?
No, sorry, I think you've covered most of the stuff that I was keen to get answers on there. Just want to reiterate, though, please, if possible, Chair, I think I'm pleased you mentioned, Councillor McAndrew, the importance of involving volunteers and voluntary groups in the delivery of some of the wildflowers and trees, for example. Just crucial to reach out to the town parish councils as well to work out sort of different places where this can all be delivered on the ground. Please involve ward members in this process too, to get feedback on individual sites. We don't individually know everything about the creative district. We can all contribute stuff to that process. We'll all have ideas of where things can be carried out that the rest of us wouldn't have thought of. So yes, local knowledge is so critical in delivering that. So please do reach out to ward members in that process and encourage the Hertfordshire Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership to do the same. And yeah, it's on the e-cars. Really pleased to hear that.
Sorry, Alex, there are other people who want to speak. So if you can make one last sentence.
Yeah, of course. Really pleased to hear that. We said about the e-cars, but please do try and reach out beyond the public sector, reach out to local businesses and beyond Bishop Stortford and Hertford as well, if possible, please, in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that might have been 2 sentences, but I will let you off. Jonathan, you wish to speak.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of the coffee cups, I think there was a trend away from disposable coffee cups, because you could take your own coffee cup into a coffee shop and then get it filled up. Then, of course, we got COVID, and that put paid to that. We had to go back to other coffee cups, but one would hope eventually that they would be able to manufacture more disposable coffee cups. Just, well, 3 brief points. One is in your first presentation about waste, you talked about C and D roads and a low rate. And I can't remember or can't quite understand what it was a low rate in actually trying to achieve, and why it was only a few homes that you went to. The second point is about the parking wardens. You talked about abuse, which is appalling. Is that a general trend up? With this getting worse, or is it specific time over the past year where it got particularly worse? Perhaps you can explain a bit more about that. And the other one is the electric taxis. I was watching something yesterday that in Shenzhen in China, there are 16,000 electric buses and 22,000 electric taxis. And they went from diesel to electric overnight. Well, obviously, in a sort of communist country where probably the government owns them all, it's slightly different. But how do you actually cajole and encourage taxis to actually move to electric and away from petrol and diesel?
Right, okay. E-taxis. We're actually, David Thorogood on the Hertfordshire Climate Change Sustainability Partnership is heading up the transport, the decarbonisation of the transport. And one of the areas that we're actually looking at is for how can we encourage the taxis throughout the county of Hertfordshire, not just within East Herts, to make that change from combustion engine to electric vehicles. So one of the things that will be done in the not too distant future will be hopefully a harmonisation of all the low emission policies within the 10 districts and boroughs within the county. And we're talking to numerous different rapid chargers, fast charger companies to install them in various different towns. But we've got to have a county-wide, we've got to work with the county and not tread on their toes, if you know what I mean, Jonathan, because they're sort of looking at this as well. So there's lots in the pipeline, and in Bishop Stortford we were having a rapid charger there and for Hertford on the just for taxis, so taxis could come along and plug in. And what I have noticed roundabout, if you look, is that we have taxis drivers that live in Bishop Stortford, that live in Hertford, that actually work in TfL, London Group, etc., and they're actually using our sort of chargers. So it's not just for the local community. On the low rate of the ABCD, the low rate was the number of inspections, Jonathan. They just haven't happened, yeah. And that is an area where we have got to sort of get back on top of. Low rate, and what was the other one that you...
The parking wardens abuse.
Oh, right, yeah, the parking wardens. I couldn't actually... The parking wardens is a private company, so I would have to sort of get figures on that. But over this period, 2020, over the period 2020, there was some, not very nice residents given verbal abuse, physical abuse, and spitting on our CEOs, which is just not really acceptable at the end of the day. And I feel sorry for them. I mean, they're just going out and doing a normal day's work.
Sure. Thank you.
But on the e-car club, can I just go back that I believe our e-car club has got very high usage compared to other e-car clubs. Yeah, and that comes from the provider.
Thank you very much. Next up is Norma.
Oh, Norma?
You're muted, Norma.
Right, sorry about that. I was just saying, Graham, thank you very much for the report. It's very interesting indeed. Just a small point on wildflowers. How are we going to protect the wildflowers when the mowers come along and the gangers come along and just mow them down? We had some beautiful cowslips and they're protected by law, and I actually had to stop a man with a ganger from cutting down the cowslips. So how are we going to keep these lovely wildflowers going if you've just got men driving all over the place in this heavy machinery?
Right, that's a very good question. You're speaking to the converted. There are stretches of road that we don't actually cut, but I would prefer that there's a lot more roads that we don't actually cut at the roadside unless it's for health and safety, safe access, safe egress. And the actual operations department and county are looking at this time and moment under the sustainability umbrella, how we can, and obviously it would save us money as well. Obviously there's got to be formal areas, but I firmly believe that where we can, we let nature sort of, look after its own.
Okay, thank you very much. I see two more hands and then I think we'll have to wrap this up. So Ian.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions, please, Graham. You talked about the C&D roads, the inspections are very low. I presume C&D roads are rural roads, and I've noticed in my area the rural roads are not being cleaned at all. The gullies are absolutely chock-a-block full with leaves. So how can I get that resolved? So that's my first question. The second question is with the wildflowers. I think you talked about wildflowers in parks, but is there a chance we can get some wildflowers planted on the verges around the roundabouts and in the middle of the roundabouts, possibly? Thank you.
Yeah, the challenge with the, right, first of all, the C&D roads are low graded areas in poor state, yeah, as you say, the rural roads, yeah. And I know there's some not far away from the fall, Watch Adam, the Oodle Lane, that's got all the shingle there, etc. That's been reported, and we should be having a road sweeper come out hopefully in the not too distant future. The best way to put them or get them reported is, one, depending on the road where it is or whatever, is to go through customer services, customer.services at East Hart, and say this road hasn't been swept or it's in need of sweeping, etc., etc. Then it gets registered, it then goes on, you could say, an Excel spreadsheet, and when people are looking at work or faults or whatever, it's always there. And the more people that report it, the more attention it gets. Yeah. On the wildflower side of it, I would certainly like to see more wildflowers or whatever on roundabouts. The challenge with roundabouts is that, one, they're sponsored, yeah, by a company who will then sort of say, I want it to look like this, or within the confines of what they're allowed to do, yeah. The area that's very difficult is that to maintain a roundabout, it's traffic, it's risk, and risk assessments have got to be carried out, and when people are actually maintaining the roundabouts, how they maintain it. So it's better that it's low maintenance rather than sort of high maintenance. I would certainly like to see that, but it all depends where the roundabout is, of course, and there's banks and various other things. But I understand the district only maintains roundabouts in towns, and the other ones are done by Highways County. So there's two different types, yeah.
Okay.
But I would certainly sort of, I agree with you, it's something we should look at and understand how we can progress, if at all possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Holly has the last hand.
Holly.
You're muted.
You're mute.
Yeah. Am I now unmuted?
We can hear
yes,
you now.
Yes, you
are. Thank you. My question was regarding the parking enforcement officers. Now, you mentioned that over the pandemic, their focus shifted away from car parks and onto road safety issues, which is obviously brilliant because, you know, I think it's a much better focus of their time. And I wonder whether this would continue for the foreseeable, because I don't want to get into ward specific issues, but there are particular roads where there are numerous schools and yellow lines, and some people seem to have forgotten what they are and caused a lot of disruption and obstruction. And this is only going to get worse as people start to return to their offices and rush hour becomes something that we all know again. So I just wonder whether, at least for the foreseeable, until we are, you know, back to complete normality, whether that could be something they continue to focus on to make people's lives much easier as they return to normal.
Yeah, the roundabout schools poses a really big challenge, and I've been involved with a number of schools in Bishop Stortford, and I quite agree. There was one school that was outside about 6-7 years ago, and there was about 12 of us there with high-vis jackets, officers from County Council, officers from East Harts District Council, the police, parking wardens, various other people. And this great big 4x4 pulled up on a corner, double yellow lines, put the window down and says, "Excuse me, can't you see I'm trying to park my car?" And it's that attitude that we're confronted with. It's behaviour change, yeah. And when you've got all these people there of authority, then somebody comes up and does that, you know, it's very difficult. So what we're actually doing with Shape and Stop for this time and moment, and myself, John, and Councillor Woodward at this time and moment, is looking at schools and how we can make it actually safer. Can we close the streets off? The schools want the streets closed off, but then again, it got challenges there for the emergency services, etc., etc. And yeah, it's a difficult one. But the challenge is we haven't got enough CEOs to actually stand outside every school every day and hand out tickets. And you can go to a school, you can hand out tickets 2-3 days in a week, and the following week everybody's back to normal. So it's not so that we're not aware of the problem. We want to do something about it. But again, it comes back down to behaviour change, and I'm fully sympathetic towards your cause, Holly.
Thank you. I think I just probably will finish it off by saying my concern is we have a lot of new builds that's going on, especially in Bishop Stortford, and I think we are missing a trick by not forcing developers to put in things like solar power, air source or ground source heating, just to make these houses more environmentally friendly. It's cheaper to put it in to start with, and it also means it's there. So I think that's something we do certainly need to work towards. I see, Sophie, you've got your hand up quick. I'm quite happy to. One last question.
It's just a quick one, but on the subject, like Holly was saying, we have similar problems with people parking very irresponsibly outside our school and in areas near stations and things like that, which would have impact on emergency services being able to access residents and schools and business addresses. I wonder whether it'd be possible to have some sort of almost reporting system on the East Herts website, so that if there's areas where there's repeated problems, both members and members of the public can put in reports, just so that if there's any like particular areas where there's lots of problems that's flagged up, we can perhaps deploy the officers that we do have a little bit more sensibly in relation to where the bigger problems seem to be.
Yeah, I believe there is something there, but you're quite right. I'll look into that, Sophie, and come back to you. But the best way to do it is through customer.services@easthouse.gov, and it will go straight through to the department, yeah, and they will pick it up. It may well be that, you know, we could pick a day or 2 days that CEOs could actually come outside your school if they are parking illegally, and if they are parking in double yellow lines or single lines when they shouldn't be. But as I say, that they can't be there every day of the week, and you issue a few tickets once or twice, then they all come back the following week. But we can certainly have a look at it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Graham. It's been a very interesting almost hour. So we've got our money's worth from you. So thank you very much for attending. I don't think you've got anything else on the agenda, so you're more than welcome to stay, but you're also more than welcome to leave if you wish.
Thank you. That was a quick 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair.
It was. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you, members. Item 6 is the adoption of the East Herts Council Access to Information Policy, and Tyrone's here. I will warn you, Tyrone, you have about 2 minutes before I will cut you off. That's nothing personal, but what we will do is then allow you to carry on afterwards.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. I'll sort of get on with it then. Just to introduce myself, my name is Tyrone Sudders. I'm the newly appointed Information Governance and Data Protection Manager. In terms of the report I'm bringing tonight, it introduces the newly drafted Access to Information Policy. And in terms of the report, I'd like to make 2 recommendations. The first being to consider the draft policy and offer any amendments. And the second recommendation is to recommend the policy to Executive Committee for adoption, having first proposed any amendments. In terms of sort of some background as to where the policies come from, essentially the Council had an information governance audit, Appendix B, to the report. And a recommendation was made to review all information governance and data protection policies to ensure they're updated, and where required that additional policies be adopted. Following this review, it was highlighted one of the first policies we would need is the Access to Information Policy. And this will be required to enhance the Council's commitment to best practice when ensuring compliance with the relevant access to information legislation. Quite good to note at this point that the Council does have the appropriate access to information guidance for staff and members of the public available and on the website, and it's not the aim of this policy to change that guidance, but rather to underpin it and act as an overarching governing document for the guidance. Just as a quick overview of the draft policy, essentially it aims to ensure compliance with the following key requirements. First being the lawful treatment of personal information and data under the UK GDPR and Data Protection Act 2018. It also seeks to make sure that information that we can routinely publish is done so in line with the Council's publication scheme and local government transparency code. And where we can't routinely publish information, that this can be made available in line with the relevant legislation, unless, of course, it is exempt. And of course, that where an exemption does apply, that we're applying that correctly and appropriately in line with the relevant legislation. And lastly, it seeks to ensure that there is an updated and relevant, fair and efficient internal appeal system in place. I'll stop there, Chair. I've just seen it's gone 7:55.
Gonna say you've timed it perfectly, so thank you very much. Members, we will now have a 10-minute break, so anyone who wishes to take part in the reflection may do so, and we'll see you back here at 8:05. Please do switch your microphones off, and we'll see you Right, well, welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much. Tyrone, had you finished, or was there something else you actually wished to add to it before we rudely cut you off?
No worries. Yes, there was just one last point to make, just to sort of say that additionally, the draft policy also aims to demonstrate further compliance with Article 24(1) of the UK GDPR, which says that we must implement technical and organizational measures to demonstrate compliance. UK GDPR doesn't give a list of what we can do to sort of show compliance, but does say that where proportionate, putting in place relevant policies is fundamental in ensuring and demonstrating compliance with the UK GDPR. And yeah, that was it. So happy to take any comments or questions.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I may just come back 5 past. I missed a bit for minutes, or I'm not missing anything too crucial there.
No, I don't think. Well, Tyrone, was there anything crucial that needs to go in the minutes, or?
Just to note that the policy ensures further compliance with Article 24(1) of the UK GDPR. Peter, that was it.
Thank you very much. I say just to let members know, Sophie Bell is with us. She's got bandwidth issues, so we can't see her, but she is here. Diane, you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Looking at the access to information policy on page 33, but actually it's page 38 I refer to, where we're talking about charges. Is that a standard charge of 450? Do other authorities charge the same thing, or does it vary at all? And if it does go over 450, what would the actual fee be then?
So that is a set charge that's determined in terms of the Freedom of Information and Data Protection Appropriate Limits and Fees Regulation 2004. So it is sort of a set charge according to legislation. If it goes over the £400 mark, we then seek to, I'll just have to double check, but charge up to £25, I think it is, per an hour. Let me just double check that. But we very rarely, the sort of the regulations and various legislation wants us not to charge rather than to charge. So we very rarely charge for these types of things anyway. But let me just make a note to double check. But yes, we will start to charge a fee should it start go over that £400 mark.
Okay, if we could have that circulated, Chairman.
Of course.
Yeah, Tyrone, I'm sure we'll do. Send us an email out later on.
Thank you.
Miney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, I'd like to say thank you to Tyrone for this policy. Thank you very much. It seems to me to be very comprehensive and very sensible. I especially like the little bit about the information disclosure log. I think it's very good that we do have that, so I'm very pleased to see that. So I do like this policy, and I think it's very good. What puzzles me a little bit is why we have the Appendix B attached, which was the final internal audit report from 2019-20, which seems to me to be very out of date and I'm concerned because the audit found that this council was deficient in some ways, and it could only offer overall assurance in a limited way. So it did not feel that we were complying with all the policy requirements properly, and it found one area of high risk and several of moderate risk. The council was not doing things properly. I thought we'd been through all this before, and that the council was now taking steps to put all this right. But in this report, if this really is the current one, it says that there were targets for getting some things put right by June 2020 and September 2020. So I'm really concerned that the council is not acting properly and that we are at risk of being found at fault. So I'd really like to ask, is this the most up-to-date report? Are we still at risk? And if we are still at risk, please could we ask our executive member to help the department to put things right and make sure that we are fully compliant with all the legislation. And might it be possible, Chairman, for us to ask the executive member to come back by June at our next meeting and demonstrate to us that we are now fully compliant with all the legislation. Yes, I'd like maybe Tyrone's comments on that, and then your thoughts, Chairman. But I am concerned about this, so thank you.
Let's see what Tyrone's got to say.
Yes, of course. So yes, answer your first question, that is the latest report. I appreciate, of course, there is reason to concern. I took up the role in January of 2021, and of course share that concern. As far as sort of towards the risk, from my review and sort of running through all the various policies and privacy notices, etc., that we have in place, we're not currently at risk, which is great. We're not fully compliant either. And I suppose that is my aim, to get towards gold level compliance. So I'd like to sort of take that away, as you said, perhaps work with the executive member and bring back just a sort of firm plan, if you will, which I'm currently carrying out, policies being one of them. But yes, I hope that provides some sort of reassurance that I've taken that fully on board and sort of working to get us fully compliant as soon as possible.
You happy with that answer, Mayne?
Yes, thank you. Yes, and thank you. I was in no way seeking to blame Tyrone. I know you've not been here very long, and it must be hard to pick it all up. But I am concerned, and we do need to be fully compliant. So thank you for the work that you're doing on this. And Chairman, do you think we should invite him back, and maybe the executive member back for a future meeting?
Certainly for a future meeting. I mean, from what Tyrone's been saying to me, he's working through it, and as I say, you know, we're not at risk at the moment. So I don't think there's any urgency to drag the executive member in front of us, because we seem to be making up any lost ground. James has got his hand up, so I'm guessing he's going to want to tell us something.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just wanted to sort of try and put Councillor Goldsmith's mind at rest as well. The fact that I have spoken to SIAS about when they will be intending on doing an updated report on this, and clearly with Tyrone now in post looking at all of these policies, we are definitely moving in the direction that we want to be moving. And I'm confident that by the time that the next version of this report comes out, it will show a very different picture. So perhaps when that is on the radar, we'll be able to tell you when that is underway, and then possibly you can look at that report when it's finalised, whenever that may be.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good idea. I'm sure you agree, Mayne, that we keep it on the radar, and as I say, it seems that we are working through things.
Yes, good. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? In which case, can I take members to page 27, where there are two recommendations. Could I have a proposal for the recommendation, please? Ian, seconded. Norma. And can we have a show of hands for those who approve the recommendations? Blue hands, please. Or
yeah, but I think that's everyone there. I think Norma Simon kind of Simon's hand, but about everyone else.
Yeah, so that's fine. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tyrone. You are free to go and enjoy the rest of the evening if you must, but you're welcome to stay with us.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your time. Have a good evening, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye. Item 7, the annual scrutiny report. Members will see that we have two scrutiny reports here. One of them has been slowed down by COVID, but we have caught up. So Lorraine, do you want to do item 7?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Agenda item 7. This is the first of two reports on the agenda for the evening, which summarises what Overview and Scrutiny has reviewed in the context of scrutiny. Firstly, during the period 2019-20, and the next report on the agenda for the period 2021. The need to report on scrutiny issues on an annual basis is enshrined in Chapter 7 of the Council's Constitution. And this report was delayed following, not only with COVID, but following a request to review how scrutiny functioned here at East Herts. This review is undertaken by the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, and there's a report elsewhere on the agenda. What is presented to members this evening is a draft of what ONS has scrutinised, and this draft summary narrative is attached to an appendix to the report. Once approved by ONS, hopefully, it'll be presented to Council for determination and then uploaded as an e-document onto the Council's website. The narrative in the appendix has an introduction by both the leader and the chairman of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which sets the scene to the reader, explaining what scrutiny is about, and in summary what ONS has looked at. The narrative summarises the approach made to the CFGS to review the Council's current approach to scrutiny and how it could better serve the needs of residents when considering decisions which the Council needs to make. The report goes on to look at a number of topics which Scrutiny have reviewed. Some issues were investigated by officers reporting back to Overview and Scrutiny. Some led to the establishment of task and finish groups for a deep dive into information, and some matters were researched with no further action being taken as there was insufficient evidence to support the need for further action or the use of resources. The narrative highlights the fact that the function of Overview and Scrutiny Committee is not meant to be confrontational or seen as deliberately to set up to form an opposition to the executive, but it should be regarded as different sides of the same coin. They should and do complement each other and work in tandem to contribute to the development of the Council's work. In summary, OS is there to enhance accountability and transparency of the decision-making process. I'm happy to take questions, Chairman, and my two bosses are here to answer anything I can't.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Alex, I see your hands up.
I read through both reports earlier. This is my first year on ONS, so I'm quite new to this committee. Though I can't help thinking that I know we've obviously had the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny review, and they've highlighted there's a lot that this committee is doing right, but I can't help thinking that there's more that we could have been doing over the past year. I don't know if that's because we haven't had any task and finish groups in existence over the last year reporting back to us, but I can't help thinking a lot of the stuff we've been discussing over the last year has been stuff that's been we'll get something put to us in terms of review this policy before it goes to exec, etc. But I can't help thinking that there's meaty stuff that we perhaps would be doing normally that we haven't been able to do over the last year due to COVID. But yeah, and hope over the next year we'll be able to get into more depth on some of the topics, policy areas for the council, because I think there's a lot of stuff that we haven't covered, and I accept our capacity is limited in terms of what we can discuss at each meeting, but I'd like to see us discussing a lot more, whether that's in committee meetings or in task and finish groups.
Thank you for that. I think the committee is aware that there are things that we could be doing more of. We have had task and finish groups. We've had a few. Obviously, COVID has limited what we can do, but that's not to say that in future we won't be getting back to doing in-depth task and finish groups. And obviously coming up later in item 10, we've got the draft work programme, and members can be adding topics onto the draft work programme. Any other comments? In which case, can I take members to page 56, where we have recommendation A. Could I have a proposal for recommendation A, please? Alex seconded. Holly. And can we have the blue hands up to show that you're happy?
I believe that's everyone, Chairman.
Thank you very much. In which case it is back to Lorraine for item 8. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to this? Or?
No, again, Chairman, I mean, the slight difference in this particular report is that, you know, the intro by the leader refers to the unprecedented impact that COVID-19 has had on not only the world economically and socially, but local businesses. And as a result of that, the strong partnerships that have developed to ensure that all residents are supported. It also refers to the fact there's kind of been an overlap as well in some instances in terms of the work that was started at the end of 20 or 2019, which still carries on into this up until this period, things like environmental sustainability issues. So again, happy to take questions, Chairman.
Thank you. I can't see any. Oh, sorry, Alex again.
Thanks for that. Again, I think that this introduction, for example, I think sort of it covers towards the end. It mentions scrutiny, but sort of this following is what the lead introduction. What follows a summary of what the scrutiny is reviewed in committee reviewed during the 2020-21 period. Just earlier on, there sort of I'm sort of wondering how much of this, although what the leader has said is all very important, all very right, how much it specifically refers to this committee and its work. And I'm sort of wondering again, I know we've got obviously going on to discuss the recommendations of the Centre of Governance Scrutiny, but sort of thinking what this committee's sort of role is in all of this. And I'd like to see perhaps the introduction, I don't know if the leader's draft it herself or if it was drafted someone else, but whether sort of it can be more tightly focused on stuff that ONS has been doing and how that's contributed to the work of the executive. And I think in future years it'd be good to have sort of a tighter focus on the on this committee in the instructions. Just a comment.
Right, thank you for that. You were sort of breaking up there, so I think I got most of that. But yeah, I mean, it's up to this committee. What we do, it's really nothing to do with the leader or any of the executive members. This committee is separate, but I'm sure Lorraine has taken that on board, what you've said. Miney.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to propose that we accept this report.
Thank you. So that's a proposal for recommendation A, which is on page 79. Could we have a seconder for that, please? Ruth, thank you. And could I have a show of blue hands to say that we're happy? That looks like everybody. I think.
Yep.
So, right, thank you very much, members. We're whipping through it. The next one is item 9, which is the review of scrutiny, which was the report by the Centre of Governance and Scrutiny, which seems some time ago now, but Lorraine.
Yes, Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As the intro explains, the Head of Legal and Democratic Services was asked to facilitate a review of the scrutiny process here at East Herts in order to obtain both an independent opinion on the approach currently taken here and to gain views on best practice elsewhere. And the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny was asked to undertake the review rather. The report sets out their findings. By way of background information, the process of interviewing key officers and members started in 2020 in March, but had to be reorganised as a result of the lockdown. And these eventually took place in May 2020. The review outlines and evidence sourcing is set out in more detail in their report on page 106. And their final report was submitted to the Council in November 2020. And their overall findings are detailed in paragraph 4.1 of the report on pages 97 and 98. Following on from this, a workshop was held on 3rd December 2020 when members of OS and ANG were provided with an opportunity to seek clarification from Mr. Ian Parry of the CFGS on his report. And the following is a brief overview of where we are at the moment in terms of addressing their recommendations, which is set out on page 115. 8.1 of their recommendations, the need for ONS to get involved in the decision-making process early, Officers will be attaching the forward plan to future ONS agendas, which will detail decisions to be taken by the executive covering a future period of 12 months. 8.2, a coordination of work programme meeting is held quarterly now with the leader, deputy leader and chairman and vice chairman of both Overview and Scrutiny Committee and Audit and Governance Committee, where the work programmes of both are reviewed. 8.3, executive members will be invited to future meetings of ONS to provide updates on their portfolio, and this will be a standing item on future agendas. Additionally, there are dedicated scrutiny pages on the internet, and annual reports are actively encourage the public to get involved in the scrutiny process and how the public can submit an item for scrutiny. 8.4, the Constitution Working Group meets regularly and is currently reviewing the roles of committees, including OS and ANG, to make their remits clearer. It's also looking to add a standard item on the agenda for public participation for members of the public to come and ask questions, make a statement to the committee. 8.5, it's hoped that by including the executive's forward plan as a standing item on the agenda will address the issue of becoming involved in the decision-making process early, and so encourage a more timely, proactive approach to scrutiny. 8.6, it's not too much more. Members have already considered and supported the possibility of holding committee meetings in other parts of the district. Having said that, there is a need to ensure that such venues meet accessibility requirements, health and safety, etc., to ensure that no one is disadvantaged. 8.7, ONS do use task and finish groups for deep dives into information, but these can be spread out over many weeks. Further advice will be sought on arranging inquiry dates where needed. 8.8, the scrutiny officer has arranged for scrutiny training, which will provide further advice to address the recommendations coming out of the review. And this training will be arranged post-May Council when determinations are made regarding memberships of committees. Members are asked to receive the final report by the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny and to make any recommendations to the executive. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Hopefully when members did attend the meetings, they found them interesting. I think for experienced members and new ones, it was nice to brush up on the things that scrutiny should and could be doing. Miney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm delighted with this report. I think it is excellent, and I'm sure we were all glad that we had a chance to participate. I think all the recommendations are extremely good, and especially I'm very pleased to see that we should always have the forward plan included with our papers all the time, because we are being encouraged to be able to contribute to some strategic forward planning and policy making of the council, and I do think that would be very valuable if we could make such a positive contribution. So yes, I don't know whether we should have a special meeting to consider all the recommendations in detail. I think they're all worth looking at, and if this committee can then develop so that we are contributing more positively to policies and strategy for the council going forward, I think that would be a very good thing. So I welcome this report, and yes, and fully support the proposal that we should accept it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miney. Jonathan.
Yes, I've not been on this committee very long, and I've missed one or two meetings, so I'm certainly not an authority on overview and scrutiny. But the things that jumped out to me reading the report was shorter, more focused agendas, to be careful that we're not driven by officer reports and presentations, and also a call for referral requests from members of the public. And I think these are things that we could take on board. I think the moving around these tasks, I'm sure a few years ago we did try that, and I'm not sure it entirely worked, but it's something to bear in mind. Thank you, Chair.
I have to say, moving around these tasks did work. It was extremely successful. We even had members of the press turning up in some places. COVID has obviously put paid to that one, but I think it is important that we get out. And regarding shorter agendas, we did at some time, we were playing catch up and we had massive agendas, so that they are much better now. But yeah, thank you for that. Alex.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just think following on from what's been said already, there's a lot of really positive stuff in these recommendations and in this review. I just think that we need to be very wary following on from what I said this evening. Earlier items, we need to have that really tight sort of review, sort of indication of what we're saying, what we're doing, and how that's feeding through from this committee into policy, in terms of sort of how sort of back and forth between the executive. And I think that we need to be very careful to ensure that we closely identify that. So yeah, I just think we need to know what the impact is of what we're discussing tonight, and in other meetings of this committee. Yeah, we need so we stay focused and know what the impact of what we're discussing on policy actually is.
Yeah, thank you. I think we are focused now. You've said it a few times, so we will focus on that. Thank you. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am very pleased that recommendation 8.6 is in here about moving our meetings around the district. I know that is something you were keen on. I know the Vice Chairman of this committee, Councillor Goldspink, has been in favour of as well in the past. Indeed, this committee has resolved to do so. So I think it is incumbent upon us, not only because we have resolved to do so, but on the basis of an internal report on our own scrutiny arrangements, we must continue to do this in the future. And I very much hear what Lorraine said about needing to make sure buildings are accessible and they meet requirements. But there are many buildings across, just thinking by my own town, Bishop Stortford, that could manage that. And I know there are similar places in everywhere from Ware to Buntingford to Sawbridgeworth, and indeed even some of our villages can manage that. So yes, I'm very pleased by that recommendation.
Yeah, no, thank you. And hopefully when we get back to meeting each other properly, we can start to get around the district so that members of the public can find it easier to come and listen to see us. We've made it really easy whilst we're online. Everyone can sit at home and watch us on YouTube. I'm not sure how many do, but never mind. Holly.
Thank you. I also agree it's a brilliant report, and lots of the points made I would definitely agree with. Something that I thought was really important that I'm not sure has been picked up as much as it maybe should have. It says in here that the CFGS stressed that executive members make decisions, not officers, and that scrutiny should be asking questions of the executive. Now, we obviously have them coming to our meetings, but albeit Graham was here for an hour today, they then leave and we then continue to scrutinise without them there. So I think if that's something that's important, then they must, if an item that we're discussing is in their portfolio, then they should remain present, because we've heard many times before when we ask questions and officers respond and say, you know, that's actually not something I can answer, that's for the executive member to answer. So why not have them here if a particular item is in their portfolio, and not sort of let them leave after they've done a presentation?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is fair comment, and for future meetings, that is happening. The past meeting, unfortunately the last one, there was a slight hiccup and the executive members hadn't been invited, but they are going to be invited to all future meetings, so that anything that is on their portfolio they will be there for, because we are there to question the executive members on policy. Tonight's one, the only one would be the GDPR one, but everything else was really down to our committee. So this one is slightly different. But yes, in future, the executive members will be asked to come and do a report. There'll be a different report, every one, and the executive members for each report will be coming as well. So yes, that has been taken on board. Thank you. Ian.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the recommendations I liked, and I don't think that we've done it so far, I've never come across it so far, is that members of the public can come up with items for our agenda. I think we do have to be a bit careful about this, because obviously it could be members of the public have a certain grievance. We don't want things like that. But as far as I'm aware, we've never actually had members of the public come up with items for our agenda. I think it's a very good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we did look at, certainly for members of the public attending the meeting, and I think the standing orders don't allow it at the moment, but I think that's something that we are looking at, changing the council's standing orders. But obviously any member of the public is entitled to either contact the council or to contact a member and ask them to put something on the agenda. We have to be careful, as you say, because there may be members of the public who don't fully understand our remit, and we don't want to let them expect us to go off and do, say, county council stuff. So we've got to manage their expectations. But I think it is important that we are, you know, we are listening to the public as well. Miney, you want to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If somebody has come to full council, has asked a public question at full council, very often the answer to the question is, well, we will refer your question back to a committee. Well, could that question then come back to Overview and Scrutiny Committee for us to look at? I mean, maybe not all questions would be suitable, but certainly some might be. And then we could look at something in depth in response to a question from a member of the public.
There's no reason we couldn't do that. What I would want to manage expectations that we do have quite a full work program going forward, so it may be that the member of the public might have to wait some time to actually get the answer to their question. But there's no reason that we couldn't do that, and there's no reason that any member couldn't fill out the request form, and we look at that as and when. But I say we do have to be careful, because we have got quite some full agendas, and we don't want to get back to the time when we had too many items on the agenda.
Yes.
But yeah, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on that issue of questions being referred to ONS, having been a member of ONS at a different council where that did routinely happen, the results of sending questions back to ONS was extremely, extremely mixed. Some of the questions, it worked very well, but some of them where the question, often when it was overtly political or it was a particular hobby horse of one or two individuals, it just was essentially a waste of ONS time. So I think if they are to be referred to Overview and Scrutiny, it has to be something that is judiciously referred to Overview and Scrutiny, and that just half of, 4 questions every meeting do not get referred to us. That will not work. You'll have bad questions, bad topics, and not enough time. My experience is, in all seriousness, you may be looking at a maximum of 1 topic every other meeting, and that's if you have a packed agenda of public questions at council. So we just have to make sure, not too much gets referred, otherwise we can't do it full justice and make the rest of our calls on our time.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair comment. Thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions? If not, no, I can't see any hands. Can I take members to page 95? There is 1 recommendation to receive the final report. Could I have a proposer, please? Alex,
I think. Yeah.
And seconded by Ian.
Yep.
Can we have a show of hands? All those in favour, please. I think that looks unanimous.
I think so, yes, that's right. Everyone's there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And finally, we are item 10, Lorraine again, the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the last report on the agenda, Chairman. This is your usual draft work programme that we work to developing at each committee. If I could take you to page 133, that sets out what we feel is coming based on reports which have been requested from last year and carried forward. You see, we've got the RIPA, use of social media report by the head of legal. You also asked last year to have 2 reports or a report twice yearly on the Environmental Sustainability Action Plan. That's due in June. And the annual report and corporate plan, which will be coming from the head of communications, strategy and policy. And we will be inviting the executive member along that cover all those reports, i.e. Councillor Williamson, Councillor Cutting, and I can't remember the other member, maybe Councillor McAndrew again, in relation to the sustainability one. Nothing else to add, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members with any questions?
I don't think so, Chairman.
I can't see any, in which case can I take members to page 117. There are 2 recommendations. Could I have a proposer for the recommendation, please? David, seconded. Myone. And I'll raise the blue hands for those in favour.
I think that's mostly everyone there, I think. Yep.
Yep. Thank you very much. In which case, I believe that is the end of the meeting, in which case I declare the meeting closed at 20:40. I wish you all a good evening and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Thank you,
Thanks
Chairman.
a lot. Bye-bye.
Sorry, Mark.